drop?
No, you can go ahead with the music if you want. And then we'll drop right at 9 o'clock.
You gonna learn today?
97 The Beat FM.
Welcome to Conscious Fever with Karl Price on 97thebeatfm.com.
Yeah, let's go. This is Conscious Fever here on 97thebeatfm.com. I am your host tonight, as I am every Thursday night here at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in the studios of 97thebeatfm.com. I'm here for Conscious Fever tonight. I am your host, Karl Price. Now I'm your host, Karl Price, now that all the lights are on. I'm here tonight with DJ Ice.
What up, Karl?
Not much.
You're a busy man, aren't you?
Man, I'm a busy man. I'm a busy
High in
man.
demand and busy.
I don't know about all of that, but I always have the time to come back and say hello to everybody that's here, all of my Facebook friends from the Facebook Live broadcast. Welcome. I see Judge Sean Delahanty. Hello, Your Honor. Tom Walker III, Sister Shirley Moore, welcome you all to the show. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I think we have a very interesting show tonight. Hopefully you've seen the promos. Hopefully you give us a thumbs up on the promos. But we got some interesting stuff to talk about tonight, DJ Ice.
Yeah, I try to get the word out to all my ex-criminal people that I know.
Well, it's not only, this show tonight is not only for ex-criminals, it's also for loved ones of those who need their records expunged. I'm going to stay away from calling these people criminals because they just, sometimes, there are mistakes that are made in life and people just need some help to be brought out of the hole that those mistakes actually took them to. So in any case, DJ Ice, if you're ready, I'm ready with Conscious Fever.
You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Karl Price on 97thebeatfm.com.
All right, this is Conscious Fever. Tonight's topic is clean up what I messed up. Expungements, how to clean up a criminal record. And DJ Ice, I got a little stuff on my glasses here. Maybe that's an indication that I shouldn't wear them.
Like a glare?
Like probably, I don't know, maybe my fingerprints or something. But welcome to Conscious Fever here tonight. I'll tell you. Here tonight on 97thebeatfm.com. I am your host, Karl Price. I want to say thank you all. Thank you all for joining me tonight. This is what live broadcasts do to you, right? Things just happen. I never try to show my little pretty brown eyes. under the lights, but sometimes I have to because I have to wipe my glasses off. Okay, so there we go. And I'm looking at all these cameras. So now the camera's on, all the lights are on. But that's our topic tonight, is a clean up what I messed up. I don't know if you know that song. That's a gospel song, DJ Ice. Are you aware of that song?
Very vaguely.
Very vaguely. You know, we sang it in church. The men's choir sings it in church, and it's called Clean Up What I Messed Up, Starting My Life All Over Again.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's actually a gospel song. It's actually a gospel song, and I'm not sure who the artist is, but I know it's one of those Southern male black gospel groups. You know, good stuff. But we're going to talk about cleaning up what any of you all out there may have messed up. And I ain't talking about if you got, women, if you had a young lady. I mean, women, if you got pregnant as a teenager. We're not talking about cleaning that up, because you can't clean that up. Or guys, if you had a child and you had the child by the wrong one because you didn't marry or whatever, etc., etc. We're not talking about that. We're talking about criminal records. We're talking about the opportunity to start over. And so I'm going to try to do the best I can tonight to give you a how-to guide and how to do it, at least here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and particularly in Jefferson District Court. So I'm hoping that there's some information that you can take away from this and actually do it yourself. Go around the lawyers. DJ Ice, Shakespeare said, kill all the lawyers. Well, I'm not ready to die yet. Since I'm a lawyer, I don't particularly like that phrase. But in any case, that was something that came, that was a phrase that came from one of Shakespeare's, some of his work back in the day. But you don't have to kill the lawyers, but you can do this without lawyers. And we're going to try to get you into a position where you can actually do that. And I just want y'all to know, Facebook Live and the other cameras that are here, the TV stream, and I just want y'all to know that I'm not, just trying to undress here. It's like I'm just a little warm because, my contract with 97thebeatfm.com says most of the time I have to wear these glasses, and most of the time I have to have a jacket on, and so here I am, because I don't know if y'all saw the earlier shows. The earlier shows, I needed a haircut. The net neutrality show back in January, I needed a haircut, and I had just a little T-shirt on, looked like pajamas or something, and and the producers criticized me, so I'm not
implemented a dress code, huh?
Right. Said, in your contract there's a dress code, and we got you because of the way you dress. So here I am. But in any case, that's what we're going to talk about. And I just want you guys to know one thing. I don't know if a lot of you all are aware of this, but I'm going to put a feather in my cap. Back in the late 1990s, in the early 2000s, I here in Louisville started doing what some lawyers would call some pro bono work, but it really wasn't pro bono for me because I was a prosecutor at the time. And basically, I saw that there was an opportunity for a lot of individuals to live without their criminal past. In other words, they had criminal records that were out there that were eligible for expungement, because they simply didn't know that the expungement law existed. They were not taking advantage of it. So what I did was I used to go out to churches like St. Stephen Baptist Church, Canaan, and I spoke at Canaan a lot. And the newspaper I call the fake newspaper here, used to advertise it, and we used to get a sellout crowd. And basically, once that started to happen, the Jefferson District Court changed its whole approach on how to deal with expungement. There was a young lady there. Her first name was Helen. I forget, as I said here tonight, Helen's last name, but she was a member of St. Stephen Baptist Church, and she worked in the clerk's office. And they were just instrumental. Helen and all those individuals were just instrumental in assisting individuals in getting their records expunged. And right after I would talk about the expungement and the process and the procedure, the courthouse would just be bombarded with individuals trying to get their records expunged. And of course, then the clerk's office sort of changed their procedure, and then they went to Frankfurt, and then the expungement process, to go through the expungement process, it got a little bit more expensive, because back then when we were doing it, I think it only cost like $25. But now it's all the way up to $100 and $500 if you're trying to expunge a felony here. But to all my listeners that are not in Kentucky, and particularly not in Jefferson County, just understand that if you're in Kentucky, I'm going to be talking about the law that applies to Kentucky, all of Kentucky. And I would tell you that generally what I'm talking about applies across the country, except with one caveat. And here's the disclaimer. You have to check with your local law as to what the actual expungement procedure is. For instance, here in Kentucky, felonies can be expunged if they're of a certain class. Some states do not allow felonies to be expunged. Some states do allow felonies to be expunged. In Kentucky, there is no time frame on records or criminal histories and when they go off your record. You know, most people believe that if something happened to them back in 1988, that there's no way that it's still on their record. And believe it or not, it is still there until you expunge it. I gave the example. I know I said it in one of the takes in the promos, but I don't think it made the actual promo. But I said that going to the courthouse and engaging the criminal justice system, particularly if you're charged with a crime, it's like spilling ink on a piece of white cloth. Okay? Once you do that, even if you didn't intend to do it, i.e., even if you did not intend to break the law or somebody took a bogus charge out on you and it eventually was dismissed, that ink spot is still there until you go and wash it off. And that's what the expungement process is here in Kentucky. Now, in other states, it's tied to a time frame. You know, after 20 years, after 10 years, sometimes after 5 years, the records are automatically expunged. Many of you all know that many years ago, the administrative offices of the courts, who pretty much control the court records and manages the court records, just had a booby. They just decided one day to, erase a lot of court records. Of course, the prosecutor's office was upset with that because a lot of times as a prosecutor, prosecutors use the criminal history to make a number of decisions when they have individuals charged with crimes before them. So they were upset about that, and that came back to fruition. But it was made crystal clear at that time that there is no mechanism in the state of Kentucky to just destroy records. In other words, I have seen records that have dated back to the 1950s, believe it or not. Even though our court system changed in the early 70s, there were records that are still out there. So in any case, so we're going to talk about expungement. But as we always do, DJ Ice on this show, before we get started and before we go to our first break, we're going to talk about the latest news. And the latest news tonight is going to be the Georgia governor's race. So all my friends and all my listeners and watchers out there from the state of Georgia. So Georgia race, this article says from the Los Angeles Times. Let you guys see that. No, I'm going to show it to all the cameras. The Georgia race Georgia race pits politically incorrect Republican against Democrat who would be the first black female governor, I think, in the nation. You know, if Matt Bevin here in Kentucky would just step aside and resign, which a lot of people want him to do, and just, leave the office, then Kentucky will have its first black female governor, because then the lieutenant governor will ascend up to that spot, who just happens to be a black female Republican here. But the Georgia race is going to be a very interesting race, and history is going to be made. So all of my listeners and all of my friends that are in Georgia, hey, y'all have to get out to vote. I mean, everything that your homeboy Martin Luther King did down in Georgia and Alabama and Mississippi, I mean, it matters now for the state of Georgia. So, and I understand that this black female is an Ivy League. I think one of the articles referred to her as an Ivy League candidate. I don't know what that means, DJ Ice. I guess that means that she graduated from one of the Ivy League schools up in the Northeast.
Yeah, like
Yale, Columbia, Harvard, and all the other Ivy League schools up there. But so in any case, but that's what's happening. And so the latest news is that now the race is set. The race is set. And in November, history may be made in the state of Georgia. This article from the Los Angeles Times talks about how these two candidates really have to reach across the aisle to actually get their votes. The Republican candidate, may be hampered, according to the article, by what Donald Trump is doing in the White House. And, of course, the African-American female candidate, or the black female candidate for governor, Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams and Brian Kemp. And Stacey Abrams, may be hampered by the fact that Georgia's a red state, which means it always, it routinely votes Republican. So history is waiting to be made. So I urge you in the state of Georgia, if you want history to be made, and trust me, I've looked at these two candidates and her credentials are just insurmountable. If you thought Hillary Clinton was qualified, this woman is far more qualified to run the state office, the governor's office, and be in the governor's mansion in the state of Georgia. But I would urge you, if you want history to be made, to get out to vote. Also, check with your local county register and your county commissioners to see when the deadline is to register to vote, to be able to vote in November. Because I don't know if a lot of you all understand, but if you haven't done the necessary legwork to prepare yourself to vote in November, you can't vote. You just can't show up like you're showing up at a club late. How they used to say, DJ Ice, I'm showing up, I'm going to show up comfortably late, or fashionably late, they used to say.
Yeah, fashionably late.
Yeah, you can't do that at the polls. If you're not registered to vote, you're not going to be able to walk up there and vote. So keep that in mind. History can be made. That's the latest news. I'm a registered Democrat, no pun intended to my Republican friends and foes out there, but I would tell you that, so I would like to see history made. Get out and vote. Voting is real. This stuff is real. If you exercise your right to vote. I don't know if most people know this, but if you actually go out, if you are a group of people, I don't care what you stand for. If you're teachers, if you're African Americans, if you're, a Jewish group of people, whatever group you are, if you're just, thugs that just stand on the corner. But if your group votes upward of 90% of those that are registered, and keep it in perspective, but just for the sake of this discussion, if you vote, if 90% of you guys went out to vote, this woman will win. History will be made. Bottom line. So in any case, so that is the latest news. Now we're going to get to our butthole of the week. Yeah, man. And we're going to stay in the state of Georgia for this now. His name, by the way, is, he calls himself Justin Spencer. Now, Justin Spencer, by the way, is a member of the House of Representatives in the state of Georgia. Justin Spencer is a white male who actually, DJ Ice, he got duped. He got duped by Borath. You remember Borath and Da Ali, the Ali. In other words, he used to have a show on HBO. Borath used to have a show on HBO where he would sit down and HBO would put their credentials behind him, and he would invite all these people, all these big names people. Actually, he did Donald Trump back in the late 90s, and he would invite them to come on his show and for an interview, and they would think that they would come into a legitimate interview, and he would get there and ask them all these questions. Well, he's got a new show, and it is called Who is America? Okay? And on this show, basically, he invites people like Sarah Palin. He just basically makes a fool out of them. So he invited this Jason Spencer to his show. This show aired was the episode 2. It aired on Showtime on July 22nd. And he invited Jason Spencer there, and of course, hindsight is 20/20, right? So Mr. Spencer is now saying, "Oh, he fooled me, he lied, etc., etc., etc." When in fact he really didn't. He thought he was going to an interview, thought he was getting some accolades, and he was being duped. And basically, this guy told, Borath basically told him to do all of this stuff. Actually, the comedian's name is Soka Cohen, and he told him to do all these things. And he said, well, one of the things that was offensive about and I think that caused him to resign, because what happened was he had lost the May primary, so his job was going to end in December 31st, or somewhere close there too anyway, in the state of Georgia, in the House of Representatives. However, what he did was he ended up resigning after this, and effective July 31st. So he's still there, but Mr. Spencer's got to go back. But what he did was, there was a homosexual prank and there was a black prank, right? Like, what if there was a black guy and he had a gun? What would you do? And you know what politician said, I don't know if you saw. Did you see the show, DJ Ice?
No, I didn't. Actually.
You know what he said? He said, "What would The comedian said, "Well, what would you scream if you saw this black man, and this black man had a gun?" And this is what these were his exact words: "Nigga, nigga, nigga, nigga." That's what he said. That's exactly what he said. So because of that, the pressure hit him, and in Georgia, he resigned from the Georgia state representative. But also, they're talking about. I mean, he made fun of a Chinese guy. He made fun of some homosexuals. He made fun of the Muslim women and the burqa, because he had actually at one point presented a bill in the state of Georgia that Muslim women in the state of Georgia could not wear burqas. Okay, so and that's all the stuff that they cover themselves up with. But anyway, so Jason Spencer, former Georgia State Representative as of July 31st, 2018, you are Conscious Fever's Butthole of the Week. Congratulations. We'll get that plaque to you in the mail. So we're going to take a quick right. So we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna jump right into our topics, and you do not want to miss what I'm about to tell you about expungements, and particularly I'm going to talk about some of the nuances. But if you want to talk about your case, I can tell you. I think there's a way that we can do it here. We can access the internet, and when you call in, we're not going to call you by your regular name. We're just going to write your name, and we're going to know who you are. We're going to get your date of birth, and then we're going to look at it. We're going to answer your question about whether you're eligible for expungement, particularly if you're here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Clean up what I messed up. Expungements, how to clean up a criminal record. If you have a criminal record you want to clean up, if you have a loved one or a relative who has a criminal record, or a good friend that needs that record cleaned up, make it a birthday present. Yeah, call them up, tell them, listen to this. I'm going to tell you how you can do it, and I'm going to do it as quick as I can before we run out of time. But and you can call in at 502-384-6483, 502-384-6483. Let me tell you this. When I was a prosecutor, before we go to the break, when I was a prosecutor, one of the things that I noticed was that I used to prosecute cases where there were neighbor complaints. And a neighbor would take out a criminal complaint on another neighbor, and it would be completely bogus. And the individual charged, the neighbor that was charged, knew that it was completely bogus. And so they knew that they would go to court and it would be dismissed. They would go to court and it would be dismissed. Let's say if it was, child abuse or something like that. Bogus complaint, go to court, it gets dismissed. And you know what the individual who was charged would do? They would walk out of court and be happy that it was dismissed and do nothing about it, not realizing that child abuse charge is still on your record. Well, understand that in the eyes of human resource people, a child abuse charge to them is a child abuse conviction and something factual about child abuse. So this is why expungement is so important, because there's a lot of people who used to have cases dismissed and would do nothing about it. They would just simply leave it on their records. They would do nothing about it. Think it's going to go away automatically because it was dismissed. In Kentucky, it doesn't go away automatically. You have to take some overt action to have it removed. And if you don't, it is going to be there waiting for when you apply for a job, when you apply for a promotion, that your human resource manager is going to see it, or that individual who is seeking to hire you is going to see it. And even though the allegations were completely false and not true, their mental capacity is going to say, I cannot get that out of my head because the bell has been rung. All right. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back from this break, before we go to the break, I have to say this, and I have to say this for the video editing of this piece. So you guys just bear with me. But in reference to the Jason Spencer piece, I want you all to watch this video of Mr. Spencer and why he had to resign from the Georgia State Representative. Okay, now, so I had to say that, so when we cut and splice this for the streaming TV, that would be on there. So in any case, we're going to take a break, and right after this break, we're going to dive right into this expungement stuff, so don't go away. We take this break. Here's some music from DJ Ice here on 97thebeatfm.com, Conscious Fever, your host, Karl Price. We'll be right back.
You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Karl Price on 97thebeatfm.com.
Yeah, come on.
Fellas, it's your duty to please that booty. Girl, drop it like it's hot, like a big booty duty.
Sucky, okay, sucky, okay. Rollin', making out. Rollin', Nicky now, rollin', Nicky, rollin', Nicky now. I need me some loving. I'm looking for me tonight. Want you to put that thing on me. Want you to do this body right, body right. Suki, Suki, Suki. Rollin' Nicky now, rollin' Nicky, rollin' Nicky now, rollin' Nicky. Suki, Suki, rollin' Nicky now, rollin' Nicky now, rollin' Nicky. Suki, Suki, rollin' Nicky now, rollin' Nicky, rollin' Nicky now, rollin' Nicky. All my ladies, 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 get a man to make you feel real good. Give me that honey love, give me that tasty love. Kiss my neck, my love, make me sweat, my love. Give me that honey love, give me that tasty love. Kiss my neck, my love. Let's get a little dirty love. Want you to put that thing on me.
Welcome back to Conscious Fever, hosted by Karl Price on 97thebeatfm.com.
All right, welcome back to Conscious Fever. I'm your host, Karl Price, here on 97thebeatfm.com. Once again, Facebook Live watchers and visitors, thanks so much for joining me tonight. Those who are watching on streaming TV and those who are listening on 97thebeatfm.com, thank you so much for joining me. We're going to jump right into this expungement stuff. So you got a criminal record and you want to have it removed. Let's talk about the process. Let's talk about the procedure. So I'm going to do this in a number of ways. First, I'm going to talk about the different types of ways you can have something expunged. Now, before I went to the break, I talked about dismissals and how everybody thinks that just because a case was dismissed that they're okay, they're out of the water, nobody's going to know that they got charged with that, and that is not the case. So there are two types of ways to approach expungement. First is convictions and dismissals. Let's talk about dismissals. If you get a case dismissed, I don't care how you get it dismissed. Okay, I don't care how you get it dismissed. I don't care if you turned flips up and down Broadway, if you jumped off the Ohio, if you jumped into the Ohio River, if you walked across the nation 10 times and back. Whatever you had to do, or if you were just simply not innocent. I'm still simply not guilty. If the case was dismissed, you're in the fast lane because dismissals are easy to expunge. Generally, if the court system in your locality doesn't expunge it automatically, then here in Kentucky, what you can do is you can come down to the courthouse, go to the clerk's office, and tell the clerk's office that you want to file for expungement. Now, unfortunately, there's always a way that they need to make money, right? So one way, you have to get this thing called a certification. Let me tell you about the certification process. The certification is basically what you do is you basically you contact Frankfurt, okay? And you have to have this certificate of eligibility. They have to determine that you're eligible. Here's the problem with that. In Frankfurt, whoever is determining the eligibility don't know what the hell they're talking about. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys that because I know for sure, because I've seen some of the documentation and the certification that they sent back, and they're not in accordance with the law, okay? In terms of whether you're eligible for expungement. For instance, probation violations should never be addressed on a certificate of eligibility, but they are because probation violations are not a charge. They're statuses, okay? So keep that in mind. So when you get but in order to get the certificate of eligibility, you have to contact the AOC, Administrative Offices of the Courts Records Division in Frankfurt. And in order to get the forms, to get your certificate of eligibility, because basically what you need is a background check. They have to look at the background check, and then some clerk, I don't know who it is up there that's doing it, but they're not doing it right, okay? Because I've seen certifications that were totally inaccurate. But you have to get this, what they call an AOC background check. And to get that, you can get it here. You can go to, I'm going to say this, website. You can go to courts, courts.ky.gov/expungement/pages/process A is in Apple, S is in Sam, P is in Paul, X is in X-ray. Okay, so I don't have time to always repeat that, but I would tell you, you go to that website and you can order it online. Okay, there's a fee for it. At one point it was $40. The fees keep going up. Like every July something goes up, some type of fee goes up here in the state of Kentucky. But in any case, but the first thing you need to do is get your background check. To get your background check, you have to have a certificate of eligibility. That's how you get your certificate of eligibility. Basically, it's a background check that says that, these are eligible, these are not eligible, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, for what it's worth. Okay? And then in district court here in Jefferson County, you need a redocket form. Maybe you need that in other counties. I'm not sure. But in Jefferson County, you need a redocket form. You complete the redocket form, and basically you have that particular case redocketed. Because remember what I said, even though it was dismissed, it's still out there for the public to see. So you got this, you have this assault charge. You want to have this assault charge that was dismissed, removed from your record. You get your certificate of eligibility, you complete the redocket form, and there is a petition that you have to complete. You can also get that petition offline from the same website. All you have to do is Google expungement forms in Kentucky. Instead of giving you the exact website, expungement forms in Kentucky, go to your web browser and search for it. Once you find those forms, there are forms for dismissal, cases that were dismissed. There are forms for cases where you were convicted. And that is if you plead guilty. That's the same thing as a conviction. You don't have to sit before 12 or 6 people to be said, hey, he or she is guilty. A conviction is a plea of guilty. And then there are forms for if your case was dismissed by the grand jury. And there are forms for if you were convicted of a felony and the felony qualifies for expungement. So we're going to touch upon those, all of those forms. So in any case, you do the petition, and then there's an order. But if you want the form number, I'll give it to you. It's AOC 497.2 is a dismissal petition. That is, if that speeding ticket that you want off your record, if that assault charge that you want off your record was dismissed, you have to file those forms in the district court. Here's the wonderful thing about dismissals. There's no filing fee. Fees for the copies that you have to make and file with the clerk's office, you have to pay for those. And you have to pay that $40 or $50 fee to AOC in Frankfurt to get your background check. But that's it, okay? Unlike the convictions where you have to pay some money for each conviction, all right? But for dismissals, they're absolutely free. So do not delay. If you've got a case that was dismissed, don't hesitate to get down to the courthouse, take the necessary steps to have that removed off your record. And it doesn't matter how many dismissals you have. Okay, the only disqualifier is this: you cannot, even if you apply for a dismissal, you cannot have any cases pending. So here's an example. That assault charge has been on your record for 20 years that's maybe keeping you from getting a promotion in the school system or keeping you from getting a job, to be a bus monitor or to drive a school bus or anything like that. Here's the thing. If you have let's say a no insurance charge or any charge pending, even if it's a traffic offense, any charge pending, all right, then you're disqualified for applying for expungement or at least getting the expungement until that pending charge is resolved, okay? Until that pending charge is resolved. So keep that in mind. If you have a case pending, don't apply for expungement. And let me give you guys a tip also. If there is something on your record that you know is on your record that you know that may prohibit you from getting a job, don't apply for the job. Let me tell you why. Because these expungement laws and expungement is just another way of saying destroying records. These expungement laws that talk about and mandate the destruction of the records only applies to the record. These laws only apply to records that are in the hands of governmental agencies. So if you apply for a job with me and I see something that's distasteful on your record, even though it may have been dismissed, and the human resource person in me says that I want to hold that against that particular individual, once you get it expunged, it's not going to make a difference because I already have it. So do yourself a favor. Do wait if you got your background check, and you can always go down to the courthouse and get a background check and get it for free. You just have to. Well, you don't get it for free. You can access the computer for free, and you can have it printed out. And you may have to pay for the copies, but or you can call a lawyer's office, and a lawyer can print them out for you. I mean, most of us have access to that stuff. But the point is this: is that if you know you're going to apply for a job, and you know that there's something distasteful on your record, do not apply for that job until you take the steps to get that removed from your record, and it's actually removed from your record. Because the problem is once that record gets into the hands of a private individual or a private enterprise, they don't have to destroy it when you get an expungement order. So it's not like you can apply for Ford. Ford sees this real bad domestic violence charge that was bogus and that was dismissed against you on your record, and they say I'm not sure if we want him in our facility. And then you go get it expunged, and then you go and apply again. Guess what? They're going to already have that. So keep that in mind. So, but once you get it expunged is just another word of saying destruction. Destroyed. So the governmental agencies have to destroy the records, and they have to destroy them within 60 days. Okay? So I want you to keep that in mind, but that's just for dismissals. I'm going to jump real quick to convictions, because convictions are a little bit different. In district court, and first of all, let me just go back to dismissals and tell you that dismissals, the way you handle dismissals in district court is the same way you will handle them in circuit court. A dismissal is a good thing to have when you're looking for an expungement. It's a good thing to have because it doesn't cost anything but your time to go down to the courthouse if you want to do it without a lawyer. I frankly think lawyers are charging far too much money to do these expungements, and they're much, much more simple than a lot of people think. The problem is that if you don't have the time to wait in the courthouse, then you may want to get a lawyer. But if you have the time to sit in the courthouse and wait just to get that record removed, trust me, you can save yourself a lot of money. Same process for circuit court is for district court with dismissals. Now, let me talk about convictions. In district court, convictions, you got to get that background check. You got to get that certificate of eligibility. And then once you get that, there's a separate petition you have to file for numbers, for all you who like numbers. The petition is AOC, Administrative Offices of the Courts, AOC Form 496.2. That's the petition. And then the AOC 496 form is the form for the order. And you complete those, and then you do an expungement redocket form with the district, with the district court. But that conviction is going to cost you $100 per conviction. Okay, doesn't matter if it was the same transaction, the same. In other words, you got charge of running from the police, you got charge of assaulting somebody, you got no insurance, traffic, all that stuff. You get convicted of all that stuff, you're eligible for expungement. It's $100 for every conviction. So keep that in mind. And that's why convictions are not as spicy and are not as preferable as dismissals, of course. But basically, that's all you have to do. You get it. They'll give you a court date. You show up in court. The prosecutor looks at it. The prosecutor may say, hey, look, I need some time to investigate this. They'll look at it. And all they're looking for is to make sure that you don't have anything pending, because so long as the charge qualifies, then you're eligible to have it expunged. Now, circuit court convictions are a little bit different, okay? Because, first of all, the petitions are the same if you get convicted of a misdemeanor in circuit court. Okay, many people don't understand that even though you get indicted, the grand jury has the authority to indict you for a misdemeanor and a felony. And sometimes they indict misdemeanors and they indict felonies, and sometimes they indict felonies and the felonies are amended to misdemeanors. There's a trick to determine whether you've been convicted of a felony if you really don't know. And the trick is, look at how much time you got. If you got 1 year or more, you got convicted of a felony. If you got 12 months, and 12 months and 1 year are actually the same, but in the legal system, they're two different things. 12 months is what you get when you get convicted of a misdemeanor in circuit court. So it may appear to be a felony, but it really is not a felony. Keep that in mind, because that's very important, and you need to know that. Because if it's a misdemeanor, then the misdemeanor rules apply. 5 years. If it's not, no charge pending, and the charge is not a sex offense, for instance, there are some charges that keep you out from eligibility. And I'm not going to get into all of those nuances. I am going to get into some nuances, but not those particular nuances. So keep that in mind, that basically, in circuit court, you got to make sure that you know what you've been convicted of. Because I hear a lot of people saying, you know, well, I got charged with a felony. Oh, yeah, it was a felony. Yeah, it may have started out as a felony, but the law of expungement is not interested in what it started out as. It's only interested in how it ended. And if it ended in a misdemeanor conviction, then it's treated as a misdemeanor. If it was a felony conviction, then the felony has to qualify. So right before we go to our next break, I'm going to tell you what felonies qualify. Actually, there's a list. And this list is actually in the statute. But I'm going to tell you, first I'm going to tell you my criticism about this list, that if you're African American, I can tell you that based on what I saw as a prosecutor, a lot of these felony convictions are not going to apply to you, okay? For instance, like unlawful use of a DNA database identification system. Who in the hell does that? Maybe one or two people. Forgery of a prescription, and there's a lot of people that do that. Possession of a controlled substance in the first degree. Possession of a controlled substance in the second degree. Possession of a controlled substance in the third degree. Theft of a controlled substance. All of these are eligible felonies for expungement. Just for example, marijuana cultivation, criminal falsification of a medical record, theft of a medical record, and little things like that. And there's a host of these felonies that are eligible. Every felony is not eligible. That's the catch. Every felony is not eligible whatsoever. And I'm going to take a moment to talk about the banana bread and the potato bread because my colleague, Attorney Rob Chandler, has just reminded me of that banana bread. But I don't know the whole story. So maybe you should call in, Attorney Chandler, and tell us about the banana bread story, because that was pretty funny when you told me. But in any case, there's a list of those felonies that are available. They're available on the AOC website under expungements, and you want to take a look and see whether your felony qualifies. Because here's the bottom line. If your felony doesn't qualify, then the new felony expungement law in Kentucky really doesn't apply to you. Okay? So you don't have to worry about that. And there's no way you can make it apply. If it's not on the list, it doesn't apply to you, bottom line. So we're going to take another quick break. And actually after this break, I'm going to talk to you all about some nuances, particularly on the felony level. Keep in mind that there's a separate petition that you would have to file if you're looking for a felony expungement also. So we're going to take a quick break. This is Conscious Fever on 97thebeatfm.com. I'm your host, Karl Price, and we'll be right back right after this musical break with DJ Ice.
You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Karl Price on 97thebeatfm.com.
Flight 305 to Miami is now boarding. Slip and slide collabo.
I will always be the one.
Dade County.
Bring it back, bring it back.
Miami. Welcome to paradise, ladies. Let's go. Miami. Might smell. It seemed like the broke day was the better days when your whole neighborhood was hood highs and assassinate. I was just in the 7th grade when I made up my mind. My dream car was a 7 tray. Wanted to don't, I was still at the bus stop. That was around the time trick thugs I rush drop. 305 on the baseball cap. Used to peanut butter jelly with the baseball bat. Realest killers on the block, still jerking and sticking. Everybody used to rock Reeboks and Dickies. And my auntie was getting loose to Uncle Lou. My uncle then was selling dope and smoking boom. That way before the mollies came through. And way after Hurricane hands drew in. Way before the flock of fiends and skinny jeans. The real Miami life, it was paradise. Miami.
City. We in the heart of Miami, the nitty and gritty. See, I was raised in a different time by some strong women with their own mind and their own grind. See, my mama was a hustler, taught me how to stack that money and make it double up. Picture me with my bamboo earrings, with my girls at the block party on 50. Wrist full of bangles, me and my girls rocking ocean waves and leisure curves. Feedlots, skate swift with the rough socks. Way back then before they knocked down Scotts, before the dope boys started writing on phones. It was trues and bowls, 50s and lows, and I've been driving dudes insane. Dade County home of the baddest in the game.
Miami. Miami. Let's take it back. We used to. And we are back with more Conscious Fever, hosted by Karl Price Esquire on 97thebeatfm.com.
Get a pause moment there, DJ Ice.
Yeah. I wanted to get the correct drop for you.
Oh, okay. I appreciate that. They call that air in radio talk.
Yeah, no dead air.
Yeah, no dead air.
See, I knew you gonna splice and split the video, so
Right, absolutely.
I had to
absolutely.
give you a second.
Absolutely. I'm
to
showing
be
too
able to-
much skin here, so I'm hi, Miss Sutton. How are you doing? I'm showing too much skin, so I'm kind of. But anyway, we're back here on 97thebeatfm.com. I'm your host, Conscious, here on Conscious Fever. I'm Karl Price. My condolences, DJ Ice, for the loss of your grandmother. She lived 90 years.
yes.
Yeah. So I had to make sure I get.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I got to make sure I get the services in my calendar. I saw the date of July 29th.
Yeah, Sunday and then Monday.
Sunday and Monday. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to put that in my calendar so I can make sure my face is in the place. Had the opportunity to meet her several times, and she was a wonderful lady, and I'm sure she's going to be dearly missed. So
Yeah.
my condolences to the Hastings family, and particularly the Hastings family, for your loss. But this is Conscious Fever here on 97thebeatfm.com. I'm Karl Price, your host, and we're talking about expungement. So just for the sake of time, because I actually want to get some sleep tonight, because I got to go to court in Lexington again tomorrow for a hearing and some arguments. So I'm going to run through, during this last segment, some of the stuff that I think is really important for you guys to know. First of all, I talked before we went to the break about documents required. So again, if you're applying for expungement of a charge that was dismissed, you want to get the certificate of eligibility and AOC background check. You can get the forms offline, or you can Google AOC Kentucky forms and get that. They'll give you the petition and the order. For convictions in district court, the documents you need: a certificate of eligibility, AOC background check, a petition, and an order, and a redocket form. And of course, you need a redocket form for dismissals also. Difference with dismissals and convictions is that it's going to cost you $100 for each conviction. Okay. And there may be some agencies around the city that would actually front that money for you, so you may want to look into that. In circuit court, what you need is the certificate of eligibility, and for every conviction that qualifies, you need $500. For circuit court, circuit court would only have felonies for the most part, except for what I said earlier before the break. All right, there are some misdemeanor convictions that are in circuit court, so keep an eye on that. But it's going to cost you $500 per conviction, and then generally you can only get one felony expunged. But I don't know why that's in the law, because once you get one felony expunged, if expungement from a practical standpoint in the court system means to destroy the record, then who's going to know that the record has been destroyed if it ain't there no damn more, right? So I guess you can get one felony expunged, destroyed, and then wait a couple of years, come back and get another one until you get all of them, because every time you do it, it's just going to be that one felony there. Just a thought. Anyway, but those are the documents that you're going to need. I'll talk to you about the expungement process briefly. Okay, in circuit court, for circuit court convictions, to qualify for expungement of a misdemeanor violation or traffic infraction conviction, the following criteria has to be met. The offense must be listed in the statute. And if you want to know where the law is, for those who look up statutes, who are not lawyers, who don't have to, because if I didn't have to, I wouldn't, it's KRS 431.073 subsection 1. 5 years must have passed since the completion of the sentence for which expungement is sought. So in other words, if you got convicted of assault in the second degree and it otherwise qualifies, i.e. there was not a sex offense, it was not a child involved, then you can't file for expungement until 5 years after you have completed your sentence. Now, just because you got released from the penitentiary doesn't mean that you have completed your sentence. If you get released from the penitentiary and you have served out, then technically you have completed your sentence. And 5 years from that date. But if you get released from the penitentiary and you're on parole, when you're off parole, when that parole is over, then you start counting your 5 years, okay? And this is for circuit court convictions, which are generally felonies. And the person cannot have been convicted of a misdemeanor or felony offense in the 5 years prior to the filing of the petition for expungement. Now, here's the trick, right? So you get convicted in 1990, and you get convicted in 1994, and in 1999 you're eligible for expungement for the 1994 conviction. You're good, because even though there was a conviction in 1990 within 5 years from the 1994 conviction, then guess what? You're okay, because there's no conviction between 1999 and 1994, or that 5 year period. All right. And again, I'm just touching upon this stuff just to give you guys some idea. But it's 5 years from the completion of probation or parole. So you go to court, you get convicted, you give a plea, you get convicted on January 1st, 2000, and then all of a sudden you put on 5 years probation. When that probation ends, then 5 years after that is when you're eligible for expungement. Okay. And then of course, you got to pay the $500 filing fee if you're looking to expunge a circuit court felony conviction. And you go to the third floor, the criminal division, room 331 on the third floor, the new judicial center. Let's talk about district court convictions. Again, the offense must not have been a sex offense or an offense committed against a child. That's a disqualifier. All right. So if it's a child abuse charge, if it's a sex offense charge, if it's rape, if it's sex abuse, sexual misconduct, it's not going to qualify. Don't waste your time. 5 years must have passed since the completion of the sentence for which expungement is sought. Now, my notes here says includes CD time. That's one of the nuances I want to talk about, okay? Because there's some belief in Jefferson District Court that if you qualify for expungement, you otherwise qualify for expungement. Let's say this is an assault on a neighbor, you get convicted in let's say you get convicted in 2010. In 2015, 5 years have passed since the let's say you got a fine. So you pay the fine. That completes your sentence. So in 2010, so in 2015, you're eligible for expungement, for example, okay? And now my note says that it includes the CD time. That's wrong. Don't let a lawyer tell you it includes the CD time, because this is one of the nuances. I'm going to tell you all this, and you can tell a lawyer that tells you otherwise. You want to write this down. You want to write down KRS 533.020, where it says probation and conditional discharge. That is the statute that says that it's not, that it is 5 years from the date of your conviction, okay, or the date of the completion of your sentence. Some say that it includes the CD time. CD time is normally 2 years. CD is an acronym for conditional discharge. Problem is, conditional discharge and probation are two different things under this statute, KRS 533.020. So when somebody tells you that you have to wait 5 years from the completion of your CD time, they're telling you wrong. That means they're telling you have to wait 7 years from the date of your conviction, and it's actually 5 years. Now, probation is a whole different thing. If it was actually probation, you do have to wait 5 years from the completion of your probation. So you get convicted, okay, in 2010. In 2015, but you're given your sentence is probation. It's 2 years probation. So technically, you do have 7 years, because it's 5 years from the completion of your probation. So your probation is going to be completed in 2012. You add 5 years onto that. Instead of 2015, it's 2017. That's the difference between probation and conditional discharge. Remember that. If somebody tells you that you have an extra 2 years because of conditional discharge time, tell them to go to that statute, where that statute specifically makes a difference between what is conditional discharge time and probation time. The interesting thing, the reason I bring that up is this, is because when the expungement law was modified here in the last couple of years, the legislature had the opportunity to change conditional discharge in that statute to probation. It did not. Okay? It said probation. Probation is probation. Conditional discharge is something different. 5 years versus 7 years. That can be important. So always keep that in mind. And if you missed anything about that nuance that I just talked about, you may want to just run this back when this broadcast is posted. Okay. So and then number 3, the person cannot have been convicted of a misdemeanor or felony offense in the 5 years prior. Again, if you got a conviction 5 years from the date that you're trying to apply for it, that's going to kick you out. No proceeding can be pending. You can't have any pending charges. And the offense cannot be enhanceable. Actually, it can be enhanceable, but the enhanceable period must have passed. Okay? What do I mean by that? An enhanced charge is a second offense DUI, a third offense DUI. That means that if you get it more than once within a certain period of time, then the penalties are stiffer. That's all enhancement means under the law. No insurance second. That's an enhanceable offense. The penalties are stiffer. Assault involving domestic violence and the same victim, that's enhanceable. So what happens is the offense can be an enhanceable offense. It just has to be past that enhanceable period. So if the enhanceable period, for instance, this is going to sound a little complicated. If the enhanceable period is 5 years, then you have to, when you're eligible, all right. So let's say when you're eligible, you have to add that, make sure that you factor in that 5 years. So let's say you get convicted in 2010. You don't get another charge until after, you don't get a charge before 2015. The enhanced period is gone. Okay. So all you need to worry about is whether you got CD time or probation time as to whether you have to wait 2 years or an additional 2 years, 7 years or 5 years. Okay. Hope you guys follow that. If not, go back and listen to it 3 or 4 times. Most time when you listen to it 3 or 4 times, it sticks. So that's for district court convictions. And again, the expungement process for dismissals, the only criteria is that you have to wait 60 days from the date it's dismissed. So on January 1st, you walk out of the courtroom and the judge says that's dismissed. March 1st, you're eligible for expungement, give or take a few days because there's 31 days there. But 60 days have to pass. That's the only criteria for dismissals. The dismissals don't cost. Of course, $100 costs for the convictions and the district court, et cetera, $500 for circuit court, et cetera. We're just talking general here, so we're just going to try to get it all out there. Now, here's the difference. If your charge is dismissed, we have these little crazy terms in court, right? It's like dismiss with prejudice, dismiss without prejudice. If you're ever going to get a charge dismissed, demand that it's going to be dismissed with prejudice. Those are eligible for expungements. Without prejudice are not eligible for expungements, and there are some exceptions to that, okay? And it's tied to a case that I argued in the Supreme Court about 15 years ago, but there's some exceptions to that. I'm not going to get into that here. But generally, if your case was dismissed without prejudice, what that means is that the prosecutor can bring it back. But the prosecutor can never bring it back if the statute of limitations has run. Okay? So sometimes that's a way out of saying, even though it was dismissed without prejudice, I'm otherwise eligible. In the felony context, it's a little bit different. I'm not going to get into that. But just keep all of that in mind. So in any case, so that's what you need to know. Let's talk about some nuances. Because first of all, let me just tell you all this. If you want the package, this package is actually online, and it's called How to Vacate and Expunge a Felony Conviction. So if you're looking to expunge a felony conviction, go to the AOC website. Google or go to your web browser, type in AOC expungement forms, and this stuff is going to come up. How to expunge and vacate a felony conviction, because there's things like vacate, expunge, and they're used interchangeably. Okay, I'm not going to get into all the details, but this is a wealth of information. A lawyer would charge you $1,000 for what's in here. You can get it for free. All right, I'm going to talk to you about some other nuances, and then I'm going to end this show with one more important thing that I need to let you. Two important things I need to let you guys know. First and foremost, there used to be a loophole in the expungement law that if your case went to the grand jury and the grand jury did not indict you for any charge, then the charge was out there in limbo. It was considered dismissed without prejudice, for which I just said you cannot get it expunged. So if that charge is out there in limbo, then years ago you couldn't do anything about it. It just stayed on your records, and the appellate courts said that. Okay, how you doing, Mr. Freeman? And your last name is Freeman, and you're in Tennessee, so Freeman, He must have been a free slave. Your family must have been part of the free slaves that came from the North. But anyway, let me get back to this expunging stuff. So basically, there was a loophole there. But the new law filled that loophole. It says that if the grand jury fails to indict, okay, after a certain period of time, now you can get that expunged. Okay, that's good stuff. Big thing. Talk to your lawyer about that. And I think you'll be shocked of the opportunity that's presented, because there were a lot of people that back in the 90s were caught in this crack epidemic. Girlfriends were, wearing fur coats that their boyfriends bought them, and they were charged with, trafficking or conspiracy or something like that. And the charges end up getting dismissed or not indicted by the grand jury, but they never could get it removed from their record. How you doing, Marcus Young? They never could get it removed from their record. So now under the new law, you can get it removed. Talk to your lawyer about that if you go to a lawyer. If not, go to the AOC website and see how that works. I'll talk to you about some other nuances, okay? Because I've seen a lot of people talk to me about felony convictions. This is felony convictions. This is very important, okay? If your conviction was for criminal attempt of a felony, criminal solicitation of a felony, criminal conspiracy, or criminal facilitation, you probably did not get convicted of the most stiff penalty that you think, okay? The reason I say that is because, for instance, if you got convicted of criminal attempt to a Class C or a Class C or a Class D felony, then technically you got convicted of a Class A misdemeanor. And that takes you out of being a convicted felon. All right, keep that in mind. If you want to look up the conspiracy law, solicitation law, facilitation law, attempt law, you can find that in 506, KRS 506.010, 030, 040, and 080. You want to, and that's important, because I've had lawyers say that, I look at your record and you got convicted of, assault in the third degree, which in some cases, well, I think in most cases it's a Class D misdemeanor, or in the assault 4, that's a Class D Class D felony. Let's say you have an assault 4, that's a Class D felony. If you have an assault 4, that's a Class D felony, and you end up getting convicted of attempt or solicitation or facilitation, you actually have been convicted of a misdemeanor. Keep that in mind. That's a big that's a difference between $100 and $500. All right. So last couple of things I want to tell you all about is this. Here's a good thing. Many lawyers don't know this, so I'm going to let you all in on this secret. Okay, there is actually a way to expunge. You ready for this? Emergency and temporary orders of protections. Okay, so you remember, old girl goes down, gets mad at you. She sees you with another girl. She goes down to the courthouse, files an EPO against you. The EPO is signed because it's stamped by a clerk, not a judge. They call a judge on the phone. The judge says stamp it. They stamp it. And you're under protection order, at least for 10 days. You go to court, that gets dismissed. Guess what? You cannot get it expunged. Used to be a time where you could not get it expunged. Under the new law now, you can get it expunged. And that's very important. Here's why that's very important. Because if you've ever been accused and have had an EPO filed against you because of some relationship type mess, then you go to court, she doesn't show up, it gets dismissed for whatever reason, but for whatever reason it gets dismissed, it stays on your record as a domestic violence offense. That's what it says, domestic violence. And as soon as an HR rep sees that, guess what? They're not going to hire you. They're not going to hire you. The bail is wrong. And even when you get it expunged, they're going to say, well, I remember seeing that on your record. So again, there is a form, okay? It is called AOC 275.18, a motion for expungement of emergency or a temporary order of protection, okay? And basically it says that instead of 60 days, you have to wait 6 months, though, from the time that it was dismissed. But the good thing about that is that there used to be a time where you never could get it done. Now you can get it done, even though you have to wait almost 10 times as much as you can for a dismissal, for that family court type of dismissal. And you do that in family court, by the way. You don't do that in district court. But if you look up the form, you can get all the details from the form. The other thing is this. I'm going to give you all my email address, but don't flood my email with a lot of BS, okay? But I'm going to give you this email address, kplawyer1@aol.com. That's kplawyer1@aol.com. And if you all want the forms that you can actually fill in for what it is you need to do, I'll send you those. Just say I'm requesting those expungement forms that I heard about on your show. There's an affidavit if you're poor, or if you want to say you're poor and the court believes you, then you don't have to pay the fees. All right? They'll let you pay the fees with, based upon your affidavit and your sworn oath that, you cannot afford the fees. All right? And then you have to make this motion to proceed in forma pauperia. In forma pauperia is just a Latin phrase that means I'm poor. Okay? You do that motion. There's a petition, and these petitions are fillable. I don't mean that you print them out and you handwrite them. You can actually type them in on the computer. I'm happy to send you guys these forms. An expungement form for a misdemeanor conviction, expungement form for a misdemeanor for a dismissal, even those in the indictment process. Okay, expungement order for the same thing and for failure to indict, and an application to vacate and expunge a felony conviction. All of this, we have those forms, and a list of all the Class D felonies that are eligible for expungement. Only Class D felonies. But remember what I said about solicitation, facilitation, attempt, and conspiracy. If you are convicted, if you're charged with a Class C, and it is attempts, solicitation, or facilitation, it drops down to a Class D. And while you otherwise thought that you were not eligible, you're actually eligible to have your Class D felony expunged because you were never convicted of a Class C. You were only, or Class B, you were only convicted of facilitation or attempt of that Class C or Class B. So in any case, that brings us to the end of my show. I hope that was very, very informative. The only other thing I want to say about the expungement process here in Kentucky, I would say to the legislature, if you're in the legislature and you're listening, do us a favor. Go back and add some of the felonies on the list. In fact, add the felony that specifically was the target felony for African-American men and women during the crack epidemic in the 1990s, okay? Since the opioid users are majority white and they're getting a break today, give the crack convictors, those who were convicted of crack, some relief. Also, put in the new expungement law felonies that if it had anything to do with crack cocaine conviction, that they probably should be eligible for expunge if they otherwise meet the criteria that is set out in the law, after 5 years and no charges pending, et cetera, et cetera. So in any case, I hope y'all have enjoyed the show. I have. Y'all know why I've enjoyed the show? Because I get a chance to look at all these cameras, and I'm on all these cameras, and I just also all night I'm just staring at me. I'm just staring at me. I'm right here on this streaming live TV camera, right here on Facebook Live. Larry Donnell Johnson and Jeffrey King and Daryl Anderson and all the other people, then Phyllis O'Neill from Philadelphia, Greg Freeman from Knoxville, Tennessee. Thank you so much for joining us. Marcus Pratt, thank you so much. And then this editing camera that we use to edit. Yeah. We put all the tags and put my name on my jacket and put 97 to beat up FM down here somewhere. Leon Lambert, thank you, sir. And, put all that. So anyway, so I'm looking at all these cameras. I'm looking at myself. So I see three of me, DJ Ice.
Yeah.
And I got these glasses on, and my curls are coming in. And these are real curls, by the way. I don't want y'all to think that I got a New York stuff or anything like that. I mean, these are actually real curls. But anyway, I'm at the end of my road. This has been Conscious Fever on 97thebeatfm.com. I hope you've enjoyed the show. I hope I've given you some information that would help you along the way as we start this process in this country of making our way to the 2.5B Foundation. We're going to talk a little bit more about that on an upcoming show, how we can raise $2.5 billion and be self-sufficient every year just by simply donating $10 per paycheck for a whole year if the right number of people do it. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But this has been Conscious Fever on 97thebeatfm.com. I'm Karl Price, your host. Again, thanks so much for joining. Have a wonderful night.
You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Karl Price on 97thebeatfm.com.
This beat make you wanna do an old school dance, don't it? It make you wanna do an old school dance. This beat make you wanna do an old school dance. Let me see you do an old school dance. This beat make you wanna do an old school dance, don't it? It make you wanna do an old school dance. This beat make you wanna do an old school dance. Let me see you do an old school dance. Ain't no party like an old school party, cause old school music go hard. If you love yourself like I love myself, let me hear somebody make noise. That old school taught us how to stick together, spend money with each other, we'll be rich forever. Hustle for your fam, make sure everybody's straight. Put food on the table, make sure everybody ate. If it wasn't for the old, wouldn't be no music, wouldn't be no love, wouldn't be no groove, wouldn't be no jamming till 6 in the morning. Old school music made the party keep going. This beat make you wanna do an old school dance, don't it? It make you wanna do an old school dance. This beat make you wanna do an old school dance. Let me see you do an old school dance. This